I wonder what your views are on the royal family. I wonder if you are an ardent royalist, or maybe you're a strident Republican and anti-monarchist. I don't think anyone could have been failed not to have been moved this week by the images of the funeral of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh this last weekend. And the one that struck me was a particularly powerful image of the Queen just sitting completely isolated in one of the stalls in the chapel at Windsor Castle. A real portrait of sadness and grief for her as she was saying goodbye to her husband. Hi there and welcome to this week's Reflections. Back in week 4 of this year in the life of an executive coach, I did a video on values and the importance of our values, and the fact that what really matters to us really does matter, really is important. And I think there have been a few things that have happened this week which have just made me think again about, well, who am I, and where do we get the value that we place on ourselves? Where does that come from? For me, I think there are possibly two main sources for that sort of self-esteem that we build up about ourselves. I think for many of us it's in what we do, isn't it? And it's in what we achieve. It's the job we have, whether we're successful at that, and whether people respect us because of the job we do. And it might be as well for many people their background, their qualifications. So I can look back over a life of doing lots of different qualifications, O-levels, that's how old I am, A-levels, I've got a geography degree, I've got a diploma in education, a master's degree, and just this last week I was delighted to receive my certificate for my level 7 diploma in coaching, which is something I've been working hard on since last September. So that was great, and I'm really chuffed to have achieved that. And at this point I would like to say a massive thank you to the results driven group, and in particular Chris Goodwin and Louise Gozard, who have been really helpful in getting me to the point where I've completed that qualification. I feel really pleased to have done it. But is that what really matters? Yes, I'm pleased to have that qualification. I'm enjoying this coaching that I'm doing at the moment. I'm really enjoying working with the clients that I'm working with, and looking forward to continuing to do that. But that's not what ultimately motivates me. That's not what drives me on. So although I am enjoying this new job that I'm doing, there's more to life than that, isn't it? So how we value ourselves is not just down to the things we have done or the achievements we've managed to accrue over the years. I think it's much more about who we are as people. And I'm just reflecting this week on some of my different hats I've worn over the years. I've obviously been a son, although sadly now both my parents have died. I'm a husband, and coming up later on this summer, Debs and I will have been married for 30 years. I'm really proud of that, especially when so many of the people I was at university with or at school with, their marriages haven't lasted as long as ours has. And I'm really proud of that achievement. I'm a dad to 3 wonderful children, 1 son and 2 daughters, and the amazing news this last 10 days or so is that I have just become a grandfather, although I think my son has decided that I'm going to be called Grand Tato because I have a bit of a reputation in the family for cooking a mean roast potato, so I think Grand Tato is where we're going rather than grandfather or grandpa or anything like that. But that's rather exciting, and we're delighted to welcome our darling little granddaughter into the world just literally about 10 days ago. So all of that is really it's one of those moments, I guess, in life where you think, goodness, I don't feel old enough to be a grandparent, but I am. And again, I guess it gets you thinking about what's really important, and what's the legacy, I suppose, that I'm going to leave. There's been a lot said in the last week, hasn't there, about the legacy that Prince Philip has left behind. And his legacy is very clear, it's very evident. Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme and all the many, many hundreds of charities that he's been so good at supporting over the years. What will my legacy be? Well, it's not going to be the fact that I passed X number of O levels or A levels, or had this degree or that degree. It's not going to be any of those things, is it? It's going to be how I'm remembered by my family and by my friends. So I guess that's made me just reflect a little bit this week on the importance of nurturing those relationships, making sure that I'm putting as much time and effort, if not more time and effort, into nurturing and sustaining those important relationships as I am into my work life. And I know, chatting to some of my clients, that that's something they don't always get right, that they are aware that their work and life balance, which is a phrase that they sometimes use, has got a little bit out of kilter, and they're spending too much time focusing on work and not enough time focusing perhaps on family and friends. So that's been a challenge to me in the last week or so, and maybe that's just a challenge to all of us, a good opportunity perhaps to reflect on what it is that we're doing and how important these things are. But thanks very much if you've watched through to the end of this video. Thank you for watching these, and I'll be back next week with week 17, where perhaps I'll just revert back to reflecting on some of the things that I'm learning as I go about this business of coaching. But have a great week, everybody. Bye bye.